You're listening to Coming of Cage, a Nicolas Cage podcast. Hey everybody, welcome back to Coming of Cage, a Nicolas Cage podcast. I am one of your two hosts. I am Derek, and I've got my buddy Ryan here with me.
Hi.
How's it going, buddy?
It's going good. How are you?
I'm good. We've got a different kind of movie for us to talk about this week. This week, we are talking about the 1994 flick, It Could Happen to You, directed by Andrew Bergman, which is kind of interesting because he also directed Honeymoon in Vegas. So
yeah, and this will be a weird one for us because the hundreds and hundreds of episodes that we've done together, I don't think we've done any romantic comedies. So
that's true. So for those who don't know, Ryan and I have been podcasting together for 8 wonderful years on multiple shows, and they always were entertainment related. But yeah, I don't think we've ever talked about a romantic comedy in any of that probably 300 something episodes that we've done together.
Yeah, probably for good reason too. We'll see how this episode goes.
So for those who don't know what this movie is about, it's based on a true story. Loosely, I read into it a little bit. It's loosely based on a true story, but basically the story is that there is a New York cop and he wins the lottery and splits it with this woman who is a waiter at a diner in New York. And that's the story. And that's kind of what the movie here is about. So, spoiler warning for this 1994 romantic comedy. Rest of the cast, Bridget Fonda is kind of the co-star of the film. She plays the waiter. And then you have Rosie Perez, who plays Nicolas Cage's wife in the film. Isaac Hayes is our narrator. Well, I guess kind of more than a narrator since he's actually on screen at times. I'm sure there's a term for that, but Stanley Tucci has a small role in the film as well. So it's kind of a weird movie. It's a strange cast, kind of a weird movie. But I saw your face when I was talking about Isaac Hayes. So I just have to ask, what was that reaction?
Well, so at first, when we start seeing the narrator, I instantly thought okay, is this like Little Shop of Horrors where there's this one character in that movie, I think 3 characters that are constantly narrating this movie and nobody actually knows that they're there? Or is this something else? And at one point early on, he says, "My name is Angel." And I'm like, okay, so he gave us a name. So something that has to be relevant to something at some point, because otherwise they would, I don't know why they would give him a name, but then in the end that whole thing could have just been dropped. I thought that was kind of stupid.
Yeah. So when he said his name was Angel, I made the leap and just assumed he's like their
an
guardian
angel.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
like angels in the outfield or something. Cause it was the early 90s, mid 90s. So that was a normal thing.
Angels were hot.
Right. Exactly. And so that's where I thought they were going with it. I don't know. I don't know that it hurt the movie at all because it
was kind of distracting, right? Every time anything happened, there's just this random dude that's there.
But I found it just as distracting as the constant newspaper stuff that gets more and more in your face as the movie progresses.
Yeah, literally they're in New York. Nothing else happens apparently in this city other than these 2 people.
How many times a day did they put out a newspaper in 1994?
Well, and it's kind of ambiguous about the amount of time that happens between a lot of the events in the movie.
That's true.
So he talks about how he feels like he's going to die or whatever because he retired from the police force. But we've only seen him retired for 5 minutes of the movie. So has it been a year? Has it been a day? We have no idea.
Well, yeah, but at the very tail end of the film, when they've got the trial going on, they put out 4 different newspapers during the trial.
I figured they only had 1 testimony per day. Then they're like, okay, we're spent. We're going to call it for the day. And then tomorrow we'll come back and our next witness will take the stand.
Gotcha. But this is it's not even oh man, it was just kind of a wild thing. So yeah. So, okay. So
we kind of went deep into it right away.
So Nicolas Cage plays Officer Charlie Lang, police officer who buys a lottery ticket because his wife wants him to buy a lottery ticket. And he goes into this diner where he meets Yvonne, Bridget Fonda's character. He doesn't have money for a tip. He doesn't really believe in the lottery. He thinks it's a waste of money. So he tells her that he'll come back and he'll split the winnings with her, thinking he'll probably win like $10 is probably what he's thinking. Right.
Funny thing I noticed in that scene, he doesn't pay for the coffee. He pulls out, he's like, I only have enough for the coffee, not for the tip. And then he doesn't give it to her. He puts it back in his wallet.
That's a good catch.
I was like, so he gets away with not even paying for the coffee? What the heck?
That feels more like a mistake, but yeah, that's pretty funny. I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I have some notes that I wrote down, and that was one of them. So
that's a good one.
I can cross that one off now.
Yeah. So, I mean, she obviously doesn't believe him. She's down on her luck, right? She's just, she had to declare bankruptcy that same morning before this all goes down. So she's having a bad time. She thinks he's a liar and she's never going to see him again. But then they win the lottery. Now, look, it's fictional, right? They could have made these numbers anything they wanted them to be. So I wish they had made them numbers that made more sense.
Yes, I know what you're getting at because I wrote that in my notes too.
So they win the lottery. It was supposed to be what, like 64 million, I think is what it was. Yeah. And they have to split it with a bowling team from Albany. Now, the bowling team gets 9 million. I'm assuming
made up of 12 people, or they say in the movie but they say that that's one entity. They make a point to show that they're splitting the 9 million together.
Right, because they paid for one ticket, and so it's one win. Now, I assume that's because their numbers were slightly more correct than
no, because they said they all had the same numbers.
Then why would they get more?
Right. And they also said that there was like other winners too. They have to split it with like 13 people or something like that.
Right. So so the bowlers get 9, Langs get 4.
Yeah.
That's all we really know as far as like the amounts. We see a couple of other people who I don't believe even get names. And they get $4 million, but he's going to split it with Yvonne. So they each get 2 million. Rosie's furious about the whole thing. So like her name's Muriel in the movie. I like Rosie Perez, most recently, I guess we've seen her like in Birds of Prey. This role of hers was like the most grating, annoying character that I have watched in a long time.
Okay. So let's just to branch off that. I would say that about every character in this movie. They made it such a point. And I actually want to say I actually did enjoy this movie, but there was like a lot of weird, like, I don't know why I enjoyed it. I can't really pinpoint it because they made a point to show that every character is just a giant bag of dicks. Like when you first meet Yvonne, she's a huge jerk to the officer and to everybody else. And Charlie Lang is like the only guy that's nice, except he's not really nice because he's cheating on his wife. Like, you're supposed to root for this guy, but he's clearly in the wrong, okay? Despite how great he is for everything else in the movie. Like, the main heroes are not actually that heroic. They're kind of pieces of crap. I mean, Yvonne says that she hasn't divorced Stanley Tucci because she doesn't have the money. Why isn't that not the first thing that she does once she gets that money? Instead, she goes and buys a diner and stays married to this guy for an ambiguous amount of time. Because we have no idea how much time has gone on. So really, like, everybody in this movie is just a giant piece of crap. Like, so far, like, unbelievably bad, right? Like, they're just such jerks. Rosie Perez, Muriel is terrible. She's like the worst, right? And then the guy that's going to give her advice on finances and stuff.
Yeah,
he's
gross.
Terrible. Everybody's just so terrible. Stanley Tucci, so terrible. Literally, everybody is just so horrible because I think they did it because Nic Cage's character is he's not good either, but they had to make everybody else worse. It's like what they say that about in Peacemaker, that he's a bad guy, but they had to make everybody else way worse to make him seem like a good guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's fair. Like, I'm trying to think it through. Like, I'm desperate to find a good character. I think the closest is Angel,
except that he's stalking people without their knowledge.
He's lying
and he's
about
taking money. He took money from them at the end. He's like, they're broke, but they still gave me money to buy soup or whatever. So
no,
that's
he's been getting free meals, like he's undercover as a homeless man. And, I know reporters, sometimes did that, but it's not super great to knowingly do that to people who are already in a bad place and you're taking resources from them when you don't need to. And
right.
somebody else out there does need that bowl of soup. It's just not you. Right.
Instead, you're manipulating them into giving you this free food, and he's a bag of dicks too. Literally everybody in this movie is a bag of dicks.
Well, and Lang, so Charlie, Nicolas Cage's character, Charlie Lang, he's even worse than you're saying too, because towards the end of the movie, he kind of goes off the handle a couple of times.
Yeah.
Like through an hour and a half of this movie, he's a pretty chill guy, right? He may not be doing the right thing, but he's even, he's chill. He doesn't.
And then he physically assaults his wife.
And he yells at another part too after that. So it's not even like a one-off where he just got overly frustrated at this divorce situation, right? It's not even that. He does it another time. So it's like he has a short fuse. So what's going on behind those closed doors that we don't know about that caused this marriage to become where it is, right? Yeah, Muriel might be shallow, right? She might be a snob, right? But Charlie's certainly looking like he has some other anger issues that he has to deal with that are a whole different problem.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, right? Like it's a romance, right? It's a romantic comedy. You're supposed to root for Charlie and Yvonne this whole time. And it is hard to root for them at various points. I don't know. I had a hard time.
If you go look at like the reviews for this movie, it's a lot of people that really love this movie. They're like 9 out of 10. It's the greatest. It's a great romantic comedy. And there's no comments about how these people are really terrible people. So I don't know. I'm glad you picked up on it too, because I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
It's difficult because I got like while I'm watching it, I'm getting those happy feelings too, right? And so when they end up together, it's this nice kind of sweet thing, right? Everything that happens at the plaza, right? So at the plaza, they both, unknowing to the other, decide to spend the same night at the plaza. And I don't know if they got the rooms, the adjoined rooms on purpose or not. We kind of skip that scene.
They weren't adjoined.
Yeah, that's how she comes.
Like in the same hallway. He just walks down the hallway to her room.
No, that's not what happened. She knocks on the interior door. He opens it up and she's standing there, and that's her room. There's no hallway. It didn't
look like an interior door. That looked like the hallway.
The door did, but when you opened it, it was her room. Because the hallway was massive between the two rooms.
I mean, I guess it's not really important in the long run, but yeah.
No, but so they end up at the plaza in these two rooms. And, it seems like this romantic, sweet thing. Now, at this point, Charlie's been kicked out.
And he's still married.
Right. He's still married. He's been kicked out. Muriel wants a divorce.
But she didn't spend her money to get one.
But they're not divorced yet.
Yeah.
But she wants one. So, I guess an argument can be made at that point their relationship is functionally over. I don't know. That's more of a gray area. But up to that point, it's a problem. It's certainly problematic. Yvonne, I don't know. So I don't know how these laws work, right? So if she's married, so Stanley Tucci's character is Eddie. If she's married to Eddie and she gets this money and they don't have a prenup, doesn't he get some of that money too?
Yeah. Yeah. Why does he even need to get the seed money from her or whatever for his business?
I don't
He could just
know.
take half of her money.
Right.
But then that wouldn't have made sense in the context of the movie, because at the end she has to give up all the money anyway.
She does have to give up all the money.
So he wouldn't have gotten anything then.
True, but they just kind of they just assume he can't have any. And that didn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Unless she was already divorced.
But so they order her to give all the money back, right? Yes. So does she just go to the guy that she bought the diner from, is like, hey, can I just have this $40,000 back? Or the way I assumed it would happen is that she would have to pay this money back over the years, right? Like you'd get a judgment. You'd have to pay this back. You can't pay it all immediately, so they put you on a payment plan. So all that money that got sent in and you get these feel-good feelings, in my head, I'm like, they're just going to have to pay this money. But I mean, she had $1 million or $2 million or whatever, right? Isn't that what it was?
She gets $2 million, but we don't know how much she spent. That's the problem.
You're right. But I mean, she clearly spent some of it. And they said specifically that they got $600,000 from New York. So I'm betting a very large portion of that, if not all of it, had to be going back to pay Muriel.
I mean, it's certainly possible. Like that's the issue, right? So like we have no idea what that diner would have cost. So
Right.
I don't even have a good frame of reference, but let's go on the high side. Let's say it was 200 grand.
Yeah.
Right. Cause that's like in the mid 90s, that's what it would cost to do like a McDonald's franchise. Right. So let's just pretend it's 200 grand. So even if she owed every penny of that back and she spent, maybe she spent another 200 grand of her own money. Cause keep in mind, like she's eating this one jar of macadamia nuts that she's so proud of.
That never actually goes down.
Well, right. But like she buys this one jar and she really like, that's really important to her. Right. So it feels to me like she's not like on a spending spree like Muriel is.
Well, except that they rent the ballpark, right? Maybe that was just Nic Cage's character.
That's true.
They went to the subway and just gave away money to untold amount of people to get their subway tokens, which would get pretty expensive after a while.
I guess I don't know what a subway ride cost in 1994.
Well, yeah, I mean, but that's what they showed.
Yeah.
They also paid for transportation for these kids to and from this ballpark, whatever else. I mean, there's probably a good amount of money there. I'm saying that if you got 2,600,000 is not a lot.
No. It's certainly not. I'm just thinking that like, if the restaurant was 200 and she spent another 200 or 300 on her own, then that covers what she owes back. And so she at least has the restaurant and then they're even at that point.
For those that are just tuning in, this is Derek and Ryan analyze the math behind Nic Cage movies. I think that's enough analyzing
that's
there.
Fair.
But yeah, I mean, I think that I don't know. I just thought it was silly that this New York thing is supposed to be so heartwarming, and they're probably just going to end up giving all that money to Muriel anyway, or at least a very good chunk of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the main problems with like trials in movies in general is that a lot of it's really glossed over. So like, yeah, she has to pay the money back. Great. But there's no talk about how that needs to happen.
Right.
Right. And then
we don't really need to know that either. I mean, I don't know. It wouldn't have added to the plot for me to know, they're going to pay for 5 years in monthly installments. You know what I mean?
It does matter though, because at the tail end of the movie, this does one of those wrap up things where it's like, where did everybody end up? Like it's a high school, film or whatever. And we find out that Muriel is totally scammed by this gross guy, the old guy that she meets on the boat. So they go on this big boat thing with, I guess, lotto winners. I don't know.
Yeah, that was weird.
Nic Cage, Charlie Lang misses the boat because he goes to help Yvonne and they miss the boat. But his wife, Muriel, is on the boat and she's whining and dining and all that. And she meets this older guy, Jack Gross, who is talking suave, like he knows money and investments and all this other stuff. So I guess they end up together at the end and he swindles her out of all of the money. So the trial matters because if Yvonne has to pay back over time, then at least Muriel is going to get some money.
That's true.
Right. So she like, but it says that she's broke living back with her mother.
Does the audience really care about Muriel at the end of the movie? I mean, I didn't.
I cared enough that I was kind of glad she got something like, like coming back at her, cause she's awful the whole time to like totally innocent people.
Yeah, I loved when they have like the random shot of like Nic Cage standing next to this painting that somehow at some point she had commissioned of herself hanging on the wall. And he's just like he doesn't move from this one spot. And the camera has like it perfectly framed, this painting of her and him standing next to it. And then he like looks back in shock at one point at it. Oh, it was so good.
That goes back to your conversation about how much time passes because she guts the entire apartment. Seemingly maybe buys the one next to it, it felt like, and just totally guts the whole thing. That takes a long time.
Yeah, and is a lot of money.
So maybe it's like, I don't know, 6 months maybe goes by in this movie?
I don't know. It's hard to say.
I don't know.
Another terrible thing that Nic Cage's character does is like early on in the beginning when they're trying to establish him as a good guy, he randomly has no consent and goes and grabs and picks up a blind man crossing the street, throws him over his shoulder and takes him to the other side of the street. Instead of you're a cop, blow your whistle, stop cars and just tell this man, he can still hear you. Hey, there's cars coming. I'll guide you across the street. Instead, he just randomly like chucks him over his shoulder, like no warning.
I mean, that's certainly not what I would have done.
I mean,
it was weird.
It was a weird choice.
It was a weird scene. There's a lot of weirdness in this movie though. So like there's this whole little montage, I guess, of Yvonne and Charlie kind of like doing their not dates, right?
Yes.
And there's the rollerblading one or whatever, where he starts going down this hill. I guess it was just a trail really. And then he ends up like 20 feet into a lake.
Right. That's super shallow.
That felt like a little much.
Right around that time I put the note, aren't they celebrities? Wouldn't everyone know that they're cheating? And then they cover that. Luckily, they start showing newspapers showing that they're cheating. But it took a while. They went on a lot of dates before anything was reported, where everybody is supposedly recognizing these people.
No, I think the first time it comes out is the night of the cruise, because the two of them end up at this romantic restaurant, dressed for black tie. And there's a wedding going on that they just kind of like listen to and watch. And so they decide to dance to the music that's at the wedding. And there's photos of that. So yeah. All this other stuff happened before that. It is a really weird situation. And Yvonne clearly is into Charlie. There's no question about that at all from the very beginning.
Was the Muriel Charlie relationship believable for you at all? Do you like in the beginning go, okay, I can picture these two being married and loving each other?
I think that's a little hard because it seems like these people are at the end of a bad relationship. So it's hard for me to picture, well, what did that look like when it was good?
Well, what the personalities that you see throughout this movie made me go, there's no way I'm buying that these two are ever in love. Like their personalities are so opposite. She values a lot of material things. He values being a good person, allegedly.
Theoretically.
Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't buy it at all.
My only take on that is that it felt like they got together really young. And they both probably thought the other one was going to change.
She was his first.
Right. So, she thought he was going to get a better job. He thought that she would, become a better person or whatever, and they just thought the other person would change.
I did think it was funny that they made the point that he was a virgin until he met her. What relevance did that have on anything in the story except to show that he's like kind of under a rock as far as relationships go?
Well, I actually thought it had more to do with painting that picture of this kind of like pure character, right? This is another thing in the good guy column is that he didn't sleep around. He's not a player. Right. And it's overshadowed by all of the other stuff, but I think that's what that was there for. Yeah. Hero cop who's only been with his wife, that kind of old story.
I have two more notes.
Okay.
If you'd like to hear them.
I would love to hear them.
The first one says, Nic Cage peak handsome.
This is probably the most physically attractive he was in film.
I mean, he was really good looking in this. They did a really good job with the lighting. I mean, he not that he isn't attractive, but like this movie really wanted him not to be like a crazy character. They wanted him to be like a very charming, handsome male lead. It was not like your typical kind of what we think of now as a cagey role.
I mean, he's kind of like a regular guy.
Yeah.
And he comes across very, what's the word I'm looking for? Just kind of very accessible.
Yeah. Relatable.
Yeah.
No, yeah. And he seemed, I wouldn't say he was at his peak physically in this one in terms of like his build, but he had definitely worked out for this role and was like in really good shape. I'm pretty sure cops don't get issued shirts that are that tight. I mean, if you look at his partner had like super baggy clothes and then he's walking around and like it's clinging to his shoulders and his body. It's a little weird there, but yeah, he looked really good in this movie.
So speaking of his partner, his partner is Wendell Pierce. He plays Officer Bo Williams. And he's an almost unnecessary character. He doesn't really add anything to the story or the narrative. He's just there for Nic Cage to talk to.
Well, he's there to reinforce how good of a guy Nic Cage is, basically.
That's true.
The whole time. He's like, when Nic Cage is like trying to decide if he's going to give her the money or whatever, he's like, I'll know you're going to do the right thing. And it's, okay, we get it. You're just adding more to this character, telling us how good he is because he always does the right thing. At
the same time, he comes off as not a good person himself because he's all like what he would do with the money. And it sounds kind of selfish. And
it's very selfish. Yeah.
I did think it was funny though. So near the end, when Charlie is kicked out of the apartment by Muriel, he does spend at least a couple of nights at the Williams apartment. And I just thought it was hilarious that nowhere in that place do they have a regular blanket for him.
He has to he's on like this tiny sleeping bag that's like a not even child size. It's like below child size, and his feet are hanging off the end, and he has to use a kid's blanket that only covers from like his nipples to like his shins.
But that was the sleeping bag. That was it was a zipped up sleeping bag that he was using as a blanket. So first off, he could have unzipped it. That would have at least helped, right? But it's for like an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
So that was pretty funny. I don't even know if we learned his wife's name.
They could have at least floated it. Like Nic Cage, when he had all that money, could have at least floated him enough money to buy some blankets or something. Like,
right?
Just be a friend. I mean, you bought him season tickets, but you can't afford to buy him blankets for his house. Come on,
or just get your own blanket, man. He could have just got his own blanket and left it there.
Seems like the season tickets might not have been the best idea, and it might have been like a $500 gift card to Target or something would have been better.
Well, that was the thing, right? Like this guy didn't want anything for his family at all. He wanted floor seats.
And then he didn't even get him floor seats. You're telling me you can't swing floor seats? Come on, dude. You're on every newspaper on the front page for every day for like weeks.
No, that's who you know.
I guess. So I have one more note.
What is it?
There is something else I do want to talk about before I get to this note, though, because this note is kind of about the end of the movie. So there's a scene where Muriel is talking to Jack on the boat.
Mm-hmm.
And he says something kind of flirtatious to her, and she says something about him being a tiger.
Yeah.
Right? You remember that? Do you remember the noise he made after she called him that?
Yes.
Is that what that actor thinks a tiger sounds like? Because if you watch this movie and you listen to the scene, it's like that's the noise he makes. And it's like,
I think that was a gremlin.
Yeah. Is that what he thinks a tiger sounds like? I was flabbergasted that actually made it. And so nobody was like, should we tell him what a tiger sounds like? No, this is way better. Like, I don't know.
Maybe they only had one take to do it in.
I guess. Yeah. I don't know, man. But
that speaks to Rosie though, because she stayed in character. She nailed it. You know,
that's true.
She didn't break. So
that's true. I mean, maybe that's what Rosie thinks a tiger sounds like too. So I don't know.
They brought some sick tiger on set as an example.
Yeah,
and so they're like, this must be it.
And it's like coughing and like, oh, typical tiger noises right there. That's what I'm going to go with. Oh boy. All right. My last note.
Okay.
And I don't know if you caught this or not. You might, because you're a fan too. Did you notice any interesting locations when they were going around showing all the New Yorkers collecting money and putting them in envelopes to send to the Yvonne and Charlie?
I didn't, but I have a theory as to what I missed.
In New York.
Did they really show the firehouse?
The Ghostbusters firehouse.
Oh, I missed
Hook and Ladder 8. They literally go from the sign that says Hook and Ladder 8, and they drop down and show the firefighters outside the firehouse stuffing money into envelopes. It was like a blink and you miss it. You know, they're doing like a montage. So it's like a blink and you miss it thing. But it was definitely there. And I was talking to my girlfriend while we were watching it. And I was like, I wonder if Derek caught that, because he might.
I didn't. I missed it.
I'm super disappointed in you, to be honest.
Yeah. No, I missed it.
You probably blinked.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. By that point in the film, my interest was wavering.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. My interest was rekindled immediately for like 2 seconds.
Because like when the trial ends and they lose all the money, there was this moment where I was like, oh man, so like it's not like a super happy ending. That's kind of cool. Movies don't usually take, this is a, more risky approach. And then they totally undo all of that by having all of these strangers in New York send $600,000 to this restaurant.
Right. That they're going to immediately have to pay back to Muriel.
But they get to keep the restaurant. So
yeah, somehow. I don't really know.
Yeah. I don't know. It's fine.
His cop salary is paying for it, I guess.
Maybe.
Yeah, who knows?
So, other kind of fun little things. There's a moment where Muriel buys this big fur coat and she comes out of the store and there's one of those protests against wearing fur, the animal cruelty groups and things like that. And this woman throws red paint all over Muriel, to signify, blood and all that. That actor is Emily Deschanel of Bones and sister to Zoe Deschanel. It was her very first role ever, and she didn't do anything else for 6 years after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Claim to fame.
Right? That's an interesting way to get started.
Another fun fact, Arnold was supposed to be Nic Cage's role in this movie, but instead he did Last Action Hero.
So I really wanted to talk about that because I saw that too. And so first off, I think he made the right choice because Last Action Hero is so much better than people give it credit for. But could you, like, what would this movie have been?
It would have been a comedy. I feel like if Arnold had done it, it would have been more comedy, and it would have been Ivan Reitman that directed it probably instead. And it would have been along the same vein as like Twins, Junior, Kindergarten Cop, that kind of thing. It would have been a more humorous approach because there's no way he didn't have the dramatic chops really to do a movie like this, I don't think.
It's just hard to picture him in that kind of role because while, he does have love interests from time to time, and he has had, spouses and things like that in films, at that point in his career, he hadn't really been like a family man kind of guy really. And so I guess in my head, I don't know. I think it would have been really awkward.
It would have been definitely different for sure. I mean, I think at that point he had done some family stuff. I mean, yeah, because I think Terminator 2 was 91. I'm trying to remember. Well, I guess True Lies wasn't until 94. I don't know. Kindergarten Cop was 1990. I'm pretty sure.
You're right. I forget how. See that.
And Twins was before that too. Twins was 80s.
You're totally right because like his movie catalog in the late 80s and early 90s is weird as hell.
It's awesome. Like he's got some really, really great movies in there. But there's some weird shit too.
Some of his most iconic stuff is in there, but he just bounces back and forth. Like you got Predator, Running Man, Red Heat, Twins, Total Recall, Kindergarten Cop, Terminator 2.
Yeah.
It's just like it's totally all over the place. But you're right. He was doing things like that. So that does make a lot more sense now.
But also I think it wouldn't have been nearly as accessible. Like we just said that Nic Cage was kind of an accessible character. Like we could relate to a character that's just a guy trying to do his job and wants to do the right thing. Whereas if you have Arnold doing that, it's Nic Cage is very handsome. Nic Cage was pretty muscular in this movie, but he wasn't Arnold, right?
No,
I mean, that's not really nearly as accessible, like an everyman kind of feel.
I mean, that's part of what makes movies like Kindergarten Cop funny is seeing somebody like
it's a fish out of water. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I mean, Arnold can play a cop. There's no question about that. But can he play the romantic, unassuming, humble kind of character in that role? I don't know. I mean, maybe he can. Maybe I'm not giving him enough credit, but I feel like it would be weird.
I guess the cheating on his wife part, he'd be okay with doing. Oh, too soon? I love you, Arnold, but hey, man, you got to pass.
Damn.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to listen to this, so we don't have to worry about it.
I mean, it's unlikely, but, the odds aren't zero, Ryan.
That's true. That's true. And like I said, I apologize, Arnold, if you do listen to this. I love you a lot, but come on.
Fair enough. So yeah, I mean, the movie, and it kind of gets the happy ending. I don't really like sum up montages at the end of films showing you where the characters end up. I've never been a fan of that. And I didn't like it here either. You find it just throws up on the screen what happens to everybody, and it's just kind of boring.
Yeah. Unnecessary.
It is. It feels like, you could have just had 15 more minutes of movie to show some scenes of these things happening. But instead you've got your narrator just telling us. And it's fictional anyway. So, I mean, fine. That's fine.
Another bad thing about Yvonne, if we're going to go to that, is she talks about how she had a puppy that died of parvo.
Yeah.
Man, even in the early 90s, there was vaccinations that puppies can get against parvo. So she adopted a dog without any money to get a vaccination and let it die of parvo. So that's a dick move.
Yeah, that's messed up.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, I don't think we need to keep throwing up all the messed up stuff they do. But yeah, that one stood out to me too. I'm like, man, what the heck?
I will say this. One of the weirder things for this movie for me was seeing Stanley Tucci with hair. I don't know.
Not much.
True, but I don't know that I've ever seen him with hair before.
But he was the most stereotypical character ever. Like I did not really enjoy him specifically in this role.
I think that he was totally unnecessary. Like knowing that the character existed out there, I think was enough. I don't think
they
could have needed to meet him.
She could have just said, "Oh, he's trying to blackmail me out of 50 grand or whatever," and then that would have been enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't need to see him like shirtless wandering around the apartment. Like there was a scene, specifically to show his abs. He was sitting like at an angle so that his abdominal muscles were glistening with the moistness of the shower he just took.
He looked good.
He looked great. He looked great. Yeah, no hate on him, but I mean, it was just totally unnecessary. I think maybe they were trying to appeal to to a demographic that would like to see that a little bit. I mean, I don't know, because you don't get a lot of shirtless Nic Cage in this one. So
I mean, that's certainly true. I just feel like it was just a wasted role because you could have just had somebody record something for the answering machine that she hears and not have to like have it be a full-fledged role. That's all.
That's true.
I don't feel like it added anything.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm
out of notes though, so I think I covered most of the stuff that I wanted to cover.
Yeah, I mean, the rest of the movie, it's shot in a very kind of normal pedestrian way for a 90s, romantic flick. Nothing really exciting about the score. There's obviously no need for special effects or anything like that. I guess he does jump through a door.
Oh my gosh. He loves tackling people. This guy. Yeah. No, he doesn't take anything. He doesn't worry about his own life at all. He gets shot in the arm, which magically heals really quickly, it seems.
Well, but again, we don't know how much time passes.
Yeah, long enough for a bullet wound to your arm to heal and you be able to use it in full capacity.
I mean, that's got to be like 2-3 months, right?
You would think, yeah.
Went. I guess we don't know exactly where it hits in his arm, but...
No, but he does have to wander around in a sling for a while. It shows him in a sling.
It does show him in a sling.
That award or whatever.
Mm-hmm. No, it does show that. He's walking around with his partner and stuff. So we know he's hurt and he has to heal. So that's why I'm thinking like the whole movie is maybe like 6 months.
Yeah, probably.
No.
Not really relevant, but it would have been nice if they like had some way of showing us that it's been 2 weeks. Have one of the characters say, "It's been 2 weeks since I seen you," or something like that. And, it's just a little throwaway line like that. Then we at least have an idea.
That's fair.
Because I just assumed everything was like the next day, and it seems like everything changed in one day. So obviously it wasn't the next day. Anyway, we're kind of covering the same stuff.
Yeah, we're good. We're good. There's not a whole lot else to add to it. So no. I think we're at a good point to do our Cage scale.
Okay.
So if you didn't listen to our first episode, each time we talk about a movie, we've got the Cage scale. And what we're doing is we're rating each movie on 2 different numbers to create our Cage scale. The first is quality of the film, right? Is this an incredible Oscar-worthy film, or is this like a total crap B/C grade, don't ever watch it, couldn't get through it kind of thing? And then we have our Cage number, and our Cage number is his performance. Is he serious? Is he toned down or focused, or
is he like full on crazy,
or is he full on nuts?
Yeah.
Right. That's that scale. And then we will put these on a map for everybody to see on our social media. So we're doing these on a 20-point scale to give room, because this guy's been in over 200 movies. We don't want them to all be on top of each other. So on a 20-point scale, with 20 being an Oscar-worthy film and 1 being not even worth the dollar bin, where would you put It Could Happen to You?
I mean, despite all the stuff we talked about, I actually found a lot of that stuff appealing about the movie, because a lot of generic romantic comedies just have like this really good guy who is just a good guy and so good that it's distracting. And like, I don't know. I kind of liked the fact that he wasn't that good really, and that she wasn't that good, and that everybody in this movie is kind of crappy. I'd probably give it like a 12. I feel like it wasn't a masterpiece, but I think if I had seen this in the 90s, it would have been a much stronger romantic comedy than a lot of the other stuff that came out. So yeah, I feel like a 12 is right about good for me.
So that's wild. I was going to give it a 12.
Perfect. Then that's no debate needed.
None. No, I'm totally with you for the exact same reasons. Like I completely agree with you. I think it's a totally serviceable early to mid 90s romantic flick.
Yeah.
What about your Cage score?
You're going to answer this one first because I answered the last one first.
So
now this is 1 being completely serious, 20 being
totally
crazy.
cagey.
Okay. Just to remind everybody.
Yeah. So I think he was really quite good in this. I think this is a really solid performance. I really believed this character. I think he really thinks that he's a nice guy and trying to be as good as he can possibly be. He really sold that across the board. No, he's not going to win any awards with this or anything like that, but I want to put this on the positive side. So I think I would give it like a 9.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I was thinking a 10 because it was, not like super serious dramatic acting, but it also wasn't, super crazy. So I would say somewhere right in the middle. Yeah. 9 or a 10 is pretty perfect.
All right. So this one is a 12 and a 9.5.
So it's going to be pretty close to the middle of our scoring sheet.
Yeah. This is kind of
I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of films in that center area. So
we'll see. We just got started. We're like 10% of the 1%. We're 1% of the way through the Cage films at this point. If you missed our first episode, we talked about The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which is his newest flick as of this moment in time. So go check out that episode.
Just a quick correction. You said he had over 200 films. He has 109 as of today. So
what?
Yeah.
What did I say? I said
you 200? Said over 200. So yeah, and you just said that it was less than 1%. But
no, you're right. It's 109. I've got my list. You're absolutely right.
So yeah, but we're gonna get through them. It's gonna take us plenty of time to get through them, and he's probably gonna do 17 more a year. Good on him for working. I get
That's
it.
Right. That's exactly right.
Nobody's judging.
Now,
well, not us.
To pick our next film, we have The Wheel o' Cage, where we have 16 Nicolas Cage movies, and I spin it on camera and post that to our social media, and it shows what movie we're going to watch next. But we always have to replace whatever it is that we watched. So we just covered It Could Happen to You. And so now we need to pick what's going to happen next, what's going to be added to the wheel. And so I thought I would just do that live right here and pick our name. So the next movie being added to the wheel, it's Pig.
Oh boy, man. I hope I don't know if I want to watch it again, but
so I haven't seen it yet.
I know. That's why I almost wanted to be picked, but I don't know if I want to watch it again.
Well,
I will for the show.
It could be a while because that spin could come up, who knows when. So
yeah, that's a strong one for an early review. We'll see.
Yeah, so Pig's added to the wheel. So you can go and see what's on the wheel in our social media at Coming of Cage on all of our social media platforms. Ryan, is there anything else you'd like to add on this episode?
No, it was a lot of fun talking about this. So, maybe we have a future discussing romantic comedies.
Maybe a whole new venture for us.
That's right.
All right. Well, hey, we're the Coming of Cage podcast. I'm Derek. That was Ryan. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back in 2 weeks to cover the next movie. Follow us on social media to find out what that is, and we will catch you all next time.
Bye.